Week 2 of the federal election campaign saw the Conservatives have some more pointed messaging, the Liberals again pausing their campaign, and the NDP sliding into single-digit polling territory. Campaigning in Ontario, Atlantic Canada, and Quebec, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre pitched his most detailed plan yet on how he would deal with the Americans, proposing an earlier renegotiation on the Canada-US-Mexico agreement ahead of its planned revision in 2026. The pitch came at an opportune time for Poilievre, who faced questions this week about frustrations from Conservatives about how the campaign hasn't addressed the U.S. threat head-on. In his rallies in New Brunswick and on Prince Edward Island, Poilievre spoke often and early about building Canada up to stand up to U.S. President Donald Trump from a position of strength. Interestingly, Poilievre dropped the slogan placards that we've seen from his campaign since even before the election. You know, those ones that say, "Axe the tax," and "Build the homes," and "Stop the crime." Instead, Poilievre was seen this week at a podium with just a maple leaf on a placard against a blue background. No word yet from the campaign on whether that was a strategic shift. Liberal leader Mark Carney had to pause his campaign for the second week in a row to deal with the latest development from the United States. U.S. President Donald Trump brought in a new round of tariffs midweek, sending Wall Street into a selling frenzy. Carney traveled back to Parliament Hill to meet with his cabinet committee on Canada-U.S. relations and work on Canada's response to the U.S. $35 billion worth of retaliatory tariffs on American vehicles. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh crossed the country this week, starting in Victoria and making campaign stops in Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa, and Montreal. He proposed tax-free savings bonds to bolster the economy in the face of Trump's tariffs and reiterated his plans to remove GST on what the party considers essentials like internet and phone bills, home heating, children's clothes, and he promised to cap grocery prices. But Singh's party continued its slide in support, with several polls having the NDP down to single-digit support nationwide. And finally, the Liberals and Conservatives had their fair share of candidates dropping off the ballot in week 2. For the Liberals, incumbent MP Paul Chang stepped aside after suggesting that another candidate could be turned over to Chinese officials in exchange for a bounty. The move, however, came after Carney had stood by Chang, though the RCMP said it would look into Chang's comments before he removed himself. The party also dumped a candidate in Edmonton after video emerged of him praising Hamas and Hezbollah, and another in Calgary for failing to disclose a DUI charge. For the Conservatives, they dropped a Quebec candidate this week after he made disparaging comments about gun rights to a Liberal candidate who's also a survivor of the École Polytechnique shooting. They also dumped a Toronto candidate after endorsing past social media comments calling for people to be deported to India to be quote-unquote taken care of by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and another in Windsor who previously joked that former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should be executed. And that's your wrap on the campaign trail this week. From the Canadian Press in Ottawa, I'm Nick Murray.